Hi, everyone. I love being the speaker that keeps you in between drinks. And we're going to go from marine to now, an uplifting conversation about cancer. So Imugene is all about hopefully curing some folks with the certain kinds of cancers. And we have a few walking around. Here are my disclaimer. All right, so Imugene is, in one sentence, is a clinical stage, meaning we're already in patients. Doing a cancer company developing in CAR T and oncolytic virus. I'll explain those in just a second. It's a little bit hard going in terms of the science, so I'm just going to try to make it as accessible as possible. So we have 3 prioritized programs, meaning these are the programs that we think is the one that's going to be eventually marketed or partnered with Big Pharma. So we've got an allogeneic CAR T and 2 oncolytic viruses. By the name, we all know viruses because of COVID, but oncolytic, it goes after solid tumors, so cancers. 3 current ongoing clinical studies, and we have dosed 200 some odd patients, over 200 patients, all cancer patients, and some of them are walking around today after having failed 5th, 6th, 11th line of therapy. So I'm quite proud to be doing what we're doing and talking to you guys today. We're at a market cap, sadly, only at 321 million. We were at the billion mark, and I think we will get there with our products. Azer-cel CD19 CAR T, those are just letters and words, and I'll explain those in just a second. Oncolytic virus is our parental virus, and OnCARlytics. This is a revolutionary product that we're hoping to produce data and bring it forward quite expeditiously. So I'll go into Azer-cel. So Azer-cel is an allogeneic CAR T. So these products called autologous CAR T. If you have a certain kind of blood cancer, you have failed off of chemo, because they give you chemo initially, and they put you on these autologous or auto CAR T, chimeric antigen receptor T cell. CAR Ts have revolutionized cancer therapy for blood cancers. It's about anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million. It's quite expensive, but if your doctors told you that you might have 50%, upwards of 93% of curing your certain kind of blood cancer, the government has already approved it, and only with roughly about 50 patients worth of data, they approved it, because that's such a 50% response, meaning clearance of cancer, is such a whopper of a response in any kind of cancer therapy. FDA approved this roughly with about 50 patients. Kite sold this particular product to Gilead for $11 billion off of only 50 patients. So what we're proposing now is that these auto CAR T, they revolutionize how patients can be treated. However, it is a laborious process where you have to wait 4 to 6 weeks for these things to be manufactured, because they're literally taking your T cells, genetically engineering them in a lab, and then putting it back into you, and roughly about 20% either reject it or they just get sick again and can't take the formula. What we have at Imugene is called Azer-cel, and it's called allogeneic. It's on demand when you need it and when you're diagnosed. So it takes roughly about 3 days for you to get the chemo and 2 days for you to get our product. This is a very heavy word, but we engineer the T cells from healthy donor cells. You can imagine, or I always imagine it's sort of like Ryan Gosling gives his healthy donor cells, and then we engineer it, and then we give it, and we have a batch that could be provided to anywhere between 15 to 20 patients. So it's frozen, it's at the sites, we have it at RPA. A patient was treated after failing 5 lines of therapy. So can you imagine having a certain kind of blood cancer, and it keeps coming back no matter what you do? They came on our study, first site, first Australian site, first patient in, complete response, meaning no more cancer. So Azer-cel, off-the-shelf, allo CAR T. And 7 patients came in after they failed off of at least 4 lines of therapy, including these $1 million laborious auto CAR T. They came on to our allo CAR T, Azer-cel, and 4 of those patients had complete response, no absence of their tumors. And 1 patient in particular, and a few patients, I might add, 11 months going on a complete response after failing off of 5 lines of therapy. So I'm quite proud. And when I think of this patient who's been on our study with no more cancer for more than 11 months, I get shivers down my spine because they're 47-year young and have failed off of various different therapies, comes on our study, and unbeknownst to them, 11 months later, they're still living without cancer. So I'll move quickly into the oncolytic virus. So oncolytic virus, by the name, it's a Frankenstein of smallpox variety, and it is engineered as well. And it loves to attack solid tumors. So it only replicates in solid tumors. And when it replicates, it bursts the cells, and then the virus is spread to other cancer cells. So we know this for a fact because roughly at the time of this data cut, 40 patients were dosed. These patients had anywhere between 5 to 11 lines of therapy. Now we're talking about solid tumors where you don't see the revolutionary 50 to 90% response rate. You see roughly about 20, 30% response rate. Half of these patients, 20 as a matter of fact, maintained stability. Their tumors did not grow. 1 patient in particular who had cholangio or biliary tract cancer, complete response. So only 8% of patients who have biliary tract actually respond to any therapy at all. They're given roughly anywhere between 3 to 6 months. This patient has been living without cancer for more than 2 years. We have a few melanoma patients that have been having partial response and maintain their partial response. So I get moved when I think about these patients because they've gone through so much therapy and they're so weak. And the fact that the oncolytic virus imparts killing of their cancer as well as maintain their safety. FDA has recognized that we have FDA approval for fast track. So whenever we want to submit this to the FDA, they will fast track us to approval. Revolutionary product, but what I'm really truly excited about is we know in fact that oncolytic viruses replicates only in solid tumors. In this case, we put a cassette of CD19. CD19 only appears in blood cancers. This replicates, shuttles up, or covers a solid tumor with CD19. You then add the CD19 therapy that I talked about that gave you 50 to 90% response rate. As I said, solid tumors do not see that level of response. So we have combined our OnCARlytics with a bispecific product marketed by Imugene. It's a CD19 directed. We already have this in the clinic. And if blood cancers are only 10% of the market, affecting that 90% to give the same level of response rate, all those drugs are only approved in blood cancers, and they're all CD19 directed. If we can direct any of those blood cancer therapeutics into solid tumor, we truly have revolutionized how we can treat cancer, solid tumors especially, because no more are you just, we're satisfied with 20, 30% response rate. I want cure. I want 90, I want 100%. We have a lot of data coming out, an announcement, and clinical data that we're producing across this year. And we have the reason why you should invest in Imugene, and you always have to give a pitch because that's why I'm here. We have novel platforms. We're actually curing some patients of certain kinds of cancer types. I like the truly unmet need, so I generally go for the real unmet need in cancers. And actually, the FDA likes for you to go to the unmet need because you get approvals faster. We have clinical data readouts in the next 12 months. We have deeply experienced cancer drug developers in the company that I'll show you next. And of course, we always wrap or ring fence our patents, and we just announced one this morning in China. So here's my amazing team. You could see there's Exelixis, Genentech. I've worked with them on myriads of drugs, and all of us combined, we have 17 drugs that we've helped shepherd through to an FDA approval. So our corporate snapshot, where I think I'm number 8 in the top 15 shareholders, so I'm pretty proud of that. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.